In this video, I'm going to take a quick 15-minute look and show you a couple of things in Daniel chapter 9. When I highlight these colored words, show how we're going to look at keywords. Keywords are words that are the same, similar to, or related. So reading is related to word, which is related to pleaded, prayer, confessed. Here, these are time words. I like to pay attention to words that have to do with time, especially when we get down at the end. We start talking about time prophecies. But let's dive right in, because I could do 10, 15-minute videos on this and not even scratch the surface in Daniel chapter 9. There's so much in it. Daniel right here identifies the time as the first of the reign of Darius the Mede, the son of... So he identifies the time based on Darius the Mede, the son of... I can't remember names, Arthusis, who became the king of the Babylonians. Okay, when we look at this time, we're going to come back to it in a second here. During the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, learned from reading the word of the Lord as revealed to Jeremiah the prophet that Jerusalem must lie desolate for 70 years. This is interesting, because when we come down and trace this time period, we find out from, I believe it's the book of Ezra, we compare that one, the book of Nehemiah, that he already left and he started rebuilding the temple. So Jerusalem had already started, the process of rebuilding Jerusalem had already started. So Daniel did not understand, God did not show or reveal this prophecy until after it was fulfilled. Now this is Daniel. So if God's going to make Daniel wait, and hey, the prophecy's been fulfilled, okay, let me show you what it means. What does that tell you about these prophets? No. I mean, that's a pattern you're going to find throughout Scripture. So pay attention to it. What we do is we see the word lie here. Jerusalem must lie desolate. If we look back a couple other chapters, we find out that Daniel didn't understand anything, what the visions were or anything, when he was lying on his bed, when he was lying on the ground or whatever. If we look back at the previous stories, we're going to understand what the spiritual meaning of this word lie is. In other words, while Jerusalem lies desolate, in other words, in ruins, nobody's going to be able to understand this. So we know it's a time prophecy for the future. I'm just going to skip over a couple of verses here. This is important when we see three or four words, that have to do with communication. It means it's important. Here we see 4 words that have to do with communication, and great and awesome, obey the commandments. We know it's an important verse. I prayed to the Lord my God and confessed, "O Lord, you are great and awesome. God, you always fulfill your covenant and keep your promises of unfailing love to those who love you and obey your commandments." This is a very important text to pay attention to, and it uses the word love twice, which is very unusual for Scripture. As we jump down here to verse 14, we're going to see something else rather bizarre here. And in verse 14, we see, working words. And we see prepared and do, and did. Okay, so we see 3 words that have to do with working. Prepared has to do with working, doing something is, and did, that's a past tense. Okay, therefore the Lord has brought upon us this disaster. He prepared. The Lord your God was right to do all these things, for we did not obey. So here's another important verse that tells us a great deal about this story. And when we see words like this repeated, we know where to focus our attention on. If we go down to verse 17, we're going to see a couple of words repeated here with communication. Hear, prayer, listen, plead. Basically, I'm just teaching the laws of context that are going to get you focused on looking at Scripture a little bit deeper to understand it, so you can understand it on your own. Oh, our God, hear your servant's prayers. Listen as I plead. For your own sake, Lord, smile again on your desolate sanctuary. You see, like we just covered, we know the work has already started, and here's Daniel praying for this work. And this is real important because it starts teaching us the concept of prayer. When we see something happening, we pray to God. There's something about prayer that's going to help that process along, help that work along. And we have that prayer is explained in some other books and some other chapters, but we're just going to stick with the context in Daniel right here. And he goes on, oh my God, lean down and listen to me. Open your eyes and see our despair. See how your city, the city that bears your name, lies in ruins. See, it's repeated, so we pay attention to this. We make this plea not because we deserve help, but because of your mercy. So we look at these three words. Lean down, wants God to lean down, wants God to open up his eyes, and see how your city lies in ruins. He wants God to notice. So when he wants God to notice, we see three words that have to do with vision: eyes, see, and see. And then we got the two words here, despair and ruins. He's trying to emphasize something. So basically, this is important because Daniel is trying to explain the process God has in prayer. There's a part that we have in prayer, and there's a part that God has in prayer. So Daniel's trying to teach us how he communicates. He's recording how he communicates with God in prayer, and that's a really important lesson in this chapter, and that's why I could go on and on and on and make video after video with that. Basically, we're going to jump on down to verse 20, where we're going to see communication again. I went on praying, confessing my sin and the sin of my people, pleading with the Lord my God for Jerusalem, this holy mountain. So now he changes it from, here was a city. Now we see a movement from a physical city to a spiritual mountain. See how Daniel progresses in from a physical to a symbolic meaning? Daniel's a prophet. He wrote this according to God's command. Now we also see his praying, he's confessing his sins and the sins of his people, and he's pleading. Hey, confession is a little bit more than, hey, Lord, forgive me for this, forgive me for that. Okay, we're good. Talk to you tomorrow. Daniel's getting some good points across on praying. He's trying to teach us this. As I was praying, get this, Gabriel. Okay, stop right here. Everyone, hold the presses. Daniel's teaching us the sequence that he prayed. Did it work for him? Yeah. As I was praying, Gabriel, whom I have seen in an earlier vision, came swiftly to me. If it worked for Daniel, it'll work for us. We got to learn how to pray. That's what this chapter is trying to teach us. So here we've got, right after this communication, we've got three words that have to do with time. An earlier vision, swiftly, and the time of the evening sacrifice. So he's telling us when to pray. He's telling us how swiftly the answer came. And he's also telling us what this prayer is concerning. An earlier vision right here. This is going to point us back to previous chapters. And if we went over those previous chapters, like chapter 7 and chapter 8, where those visions were, we're going to start understanding how to unravel those chapters using this method of prayer. Now you see why God links these and wrote these chapters in a particular order? There's a reason for it. So Gabriel, explained to me, Daniel, I have come here to give you insight and understanding. Okay, come should be the same as open, lies. Now, the angel is moving. As the angel is moving, he's going to perform something. Insight and understanding. The moment you began praying, a command was given. And now, see this time thing? I am here to tell you what it was, for you are very precious to God. Listen carefully so that you can understand the meaning of your vision. You see, all of these words are related, and he's repeating them to draw our attention to them. And here's this praying that we focused on before, and now he's repeating it. So you can see how these sentences are structured to gain our attention. So in verse 23, Daniel receives a promise to understand. And I'm going to drop down to verse 25. Now listen and understand. When does he listen? Now. See these time things. He begins, when he's going to explain this time prophecy, he begins it with a word that has to do with time. So it shows where the emphasis is. You got to understand this timing. 7 parts to 7 of 7 plus 62 sets of 7 will pass from the time. The command is given to rebuild Jerusalem until, in other words, time word that I missed, a ruler, the anointed one, comes. I missed this word too. Jerusalem will be rebuilt with the streets and strong defenses despite the perilous times. You see the word rebuild and is repeated. Now we can go back and we can compare this to other words in this verse. And when you do that, I don't have enough time here, but when you look at these work-related words, you can see, certain people are supposed to be doing something. And then there's the word accomplished. So these words that have to do with rebuilding will help explain, different people's duties, different people's jobs, different people's roles, and you'll be able to see how these things begin to either work together, and some chapters will show you how you get the two forces working against each other. But it's kind of strange here because now we see, Gabriel talking about rebuilding Jerusalem, but that is what the whole chapter was about. If you look at the introduction, we see that he was understanding the prophecy in Jeremiah. Now, with the 70 years, well, this is what the 70 years was about, was after 70 years, Jerusalem will be rebuilt. That's, Daniel read it, he started praying about it. You notice, that's an important part. That's the most important thing you can get out of this chapter, is when you're studying Scripture, how to pray for the answer. And how to listen. I mean, Daniel had Gabriel, an angel, in front of him, but God does answer. You just got to learn how to listen. And then I just want to quick go over this summation when I got about a minute and a half left here. The ruler will make a treaty with the people for a period of 1 set of 7, but after half of this time, he will put an end to sacrifices and offerings. As a climax to all his terrible deeds, he will set up a sacrilegious object that causes destruction. Now, deeds has something to do with rebuild. I forgot to highlight that one. Until the fate of the decree for the defiler finally is poured out on him. Now, look at, when you try interpreting this, try to forget everything you're taught and pay attention to these movement words, these time period words, and then you're going to start getting a whole lot of understanding, but pay attention to how you pray and listen carefully so you can understand. And once you learn how to listen to God's Spirit, you're going to hear it just like Daniel did.